This video is for beginning to intermediate bakers. I will be showing you how to make a 3-layer cake. 2 layers of red velvet with a cheesecake in the middle and cream cheese frosting. For those of you too inexperienced to make an out-of-the-box cake from the store, we'll cover that. If you're looking to learn a bit more than basics, we'll cover making the icing as well as the cheesecake. In this tutorial, I will be using both hand and machine mixing techniques. For the red velvet cake, you will need 1 box of cake mix, 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil, 3 eggs, and not pictured here, 1 1/4 cup of water. For the cheesecake, you will need 16 ounces of cream cheese, 1 1/2 cups of powdered sugar, 15 ounces of ricotta cheese, 3 eggs, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. For icing, you will need 16 ounces of cream cheese, vanilla extract, powdered sugar, and, if wanted, butter. First, make sure you have all of your ingredients, and at least 2 8-inch baking pans. You'll want to cook your red velvet layers together while you mix the cheesecake and the icing. One box of cake mix will make both layers. Instead of fighting with the bag of mix, you may want to grab a pair of scissors to open it easily. Empty the pre-mixed contents into a bowl of your choice. Nothing too small, or it will spill while mixing. I use Duncan Hines mix, but double check your box. It never hurts to make sure you're adding the right amount. Get your measuring cup and pour out 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil. I eyeball a little under 1/2 cup since I don't have a marker for 1/3. Go ahead and pour it into the mix. Measure out 1 1/4 cup of water and add that in as well. Next, you'll want to get your eggs. Tap them gently on the edge of your counter or the edge of your bowl while rotating them. This will make a crack around the middle of the egg and make it easier to break cleanly into the mix. Making a messy crack means you might wind up with eggshell in your cake. Unmixed, the cake is pretty unappealing. Start stirring with a large spatula or spoon, but stir gently or you run the risk of knocking mix out of the bowl. Red velvet mix is very strongly tinted, and it will stain. It will take a little for the mix to blend, but once it takes on the appearance of lumpy, if runny red pudding, switch to a whisk if you have one. This will help break up any of the large lumps of powder. Small lumps ultimately don't matter in a cake like this. They'll mostly bake out. Stir more vigorously with the whisk. When the mix is fairly smooth, divide it between the two pans. You'll have to go back and forth with pouring, as it's the easiest way to divvy up the mix evenly. You don't have to be precise, just fairly close. Once the majority of the mix is out, you can scrape the bowl with your spatula to utilize the remainder. Put your 2 cakes in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 35 minutes. Now that your red velvet cake is in the oven, it's time to make the cheesecake batter. You can mix this by hand, like the red velvet cake. But cheesecake needs to be mixed smoothly, so make sure to be thorough. For this step, I will be using a mixer. Get your 15 ounces of ricotta and add it to the mixing bowl. At this point, it's smart to leave your machine off until you also have your cream cheese in the bowl. But as you can see, I turned mine on anyway. Get your 16 ounces of cream cheese and add them to the mixing bowl. Turn off your mixer to avoid taking off a finger. Once your cream cheese is in the bowl, turn the mixer to a mid to high speed and start blending the ricotta and cream cheese together. Next up is vanilla extract. Get your teaspoon and measure out 2 into the bowl. I usually add a tad more just to be thorough. Allow this to mix for a few seconds. Get your measuring cup again and your powdered sugar. Measure out 1 1/2 cups of sugar. It never hurts to be a little over, so if you add a bit too much, don't worry. Stop the mixer and add in the sugar. Slowly increase the speed back up to a mid to high setting. The batter at this point will be looking fairly smooth. Time to add in 3 eggs. Like before, tap the egg on the counter or the bowl and then crack it into the mix. I like to allow some mixing between eggs so they're spread evenly throughout. You'll want to let this mix for a while, until it is very smooth. Once your batter's finished being mixed, go ahead and put it in the fridge until the red velvet cakes are done baking. Don't forget to check on them regularly. Once you have a free pan, it's cheesecake time. Make sure you spray the pan with a no-stick spray or the cheesecake will tear when you try to remove it. Now that you have that, go ahead and pour the batter in. It can take around an hour for a cheesecake to bake all the way through when it's this size. So just keep checking on it and test the center with a toothpick to see if it comes clean. If you pull a toothpick out of the middle of the cake and it still has batter on it, the cake isn't ready. Scrape the bowl like you did with the red velvet cake. The batter should settle on its own, but I still like to smooth out the top. Set the oven for 325 degrees Fahrenheit and put the cheesecake in. Now to make the icing. You'll need your powdered sugar and 16 ounces of cream cheese. Add the sugar into your bowl first, so the cream cheese doesn't stick to the bottom. You'll want to use at least a cup, if you want to measure it out. But icing isn't quite as precise as the cakes. Add in your cream cheese. Add more sugar on top of the cream cheese. Start your mixer on a medium setting. Now you want to add your vanilla extract. I would say a teaspoon or two, but I just eyeball it. The icing doesn't look fantastic at first. There will be a lot caught in the mixer. But after leaving it to mix for a while, it will be creamy and smooth. Once that's done, put the bowl in the fridge to firm up. Once your cakes are complete, you can start icing. You'll want to use a flat spatula. My cheesecake came out a little underdone, but normally you would stack them up like this. For the tutorial though, I'll show you how to ice just the 2 layers of red velvet. You'll want a coating of icing between the 2 layers, so you get some with every bite. Otherwise, there's a lot more cake than icing. If your cakes are very domed or curved on top, take a bread knife and even out the top, cutting small slivers at a time. If they're not, just stack the second layer onto the icing. Now, you'll want to be generous with the icing that you apply to the outside. You may get some flecks of cake in the icing as you smooth it out. Work from the top down onto the sides, rotating as you go to help it spread. Once your cake is covered, congratulations! You've made something delicious! You should have more than enough icing, so if you want to decorate the cake beyond this, go ahead and use some of the extra with a little bit of food coloring. Otherwise, you're all set. Enjoy!